Oh, there you go. There you are. Colin, can you hear
Right.
me?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what happened. I don't have very good internet connection. I have a 4G thingy, and sometimes I don't know, bird flies in front of the transmitter or something. But I will get fiber optic before the end of the year, according to the mayor. Um,
So
and so
so
anyway, I was I
yeah.
was I was just saying, if I can pick up where I was, academics and what they can bring. Um, I was talking to my scholar friend and talking about the to be or not to be speech, and he said something which I didn't know. Which kind of only a scholar would know. There's the line when he would his quietus make with a bare bodkin, and 99% of people uh, interpret that as stabbing yourself with a dagger, bodkin.
Right.
Um, but he, having done quite a lot of research into early modern literature. So there is absolutely no example of the word quietus being used in terms of committing suicide. In fact, it is getting quietus is getting revenge,
Oh, okay.
which changes that whole line entirely.
Which makes sense given the nature of the play.
Yeah, yeah. Why would I suffer all this when I could get revenge with a simple dagger?
That changes the trajectory right away
Yeah,
because I was always told that if you read the line, it's basically about Hamlet, having to decide, should I just kill myself because there's just so much going on.
yeah,
But that kind of doesn't make any sense if the whole play is about trying to get revenge.
yeah. And you add that to what I can bring, i.e., the fact that the whole speech is about question and not about an existential self-analysis. So the question is, do I kill the bastard as
Get,
revenge?
just get rid of Claudius, just off him.
Yeah, yeah. And that, as I say, that, and so that is a wonderful example of how the player can bring to the scholar something by saying, look, it's not about to be or not to be, it's about question. And the scholar can bring something to the player saying, look, it's not about doing oneself self-harm. Quietus is about getting revenge.
Good Lord. How many more Shakespeare plays have we misinterpreted?
So that I mean, well, the work that I do on the speeches, on analyzing the speeches in terms of the iambic pentameter is I'm forever going, holy shit, that's what it means. Yeah, I
So that,
know.
so my favorite speech out of Shakespeare is the St. Crispin's Day speech.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously when I look at it, it's basically Henry saying, I would rather have you guys here, the guys who are actually here and willing to do the fighting, than you know than any other army in the world, and all the people in England who are just
Mm-hmm.
living their lives away. Screw them. I don't need them. I got you guys here. I mean, is there a different layer to that speech altogether, just based on what we're looking at here?
I would need to go through it because it's not one I've actually analysed. It's a bit of an aria, I think. Also, yeah. it's a an aria in operatic terms, and that depends on and of course a lot of it depends on how it's performed. An actor I saw performing it, I do hate trashing other actors by name.
Was it just out of curiosity? Was it was it part of the Hollow Crown series? Because if it is, I think I know who you're talking about.
No, it was at the Globe.
Oh, okay.
And there was one actor I saw perform it, and it was so low energy and so low key. And I thought, well, if I'd been there in the in the army, I would have taken the bag of gold and gone back to England, because if that's the guy who's going to lead me, then it doesn't give much confidence.
I mean, because we're talking about the night before Agincourt, so obviously you're going to want a high energy speech to kind of get you pumped up, because you're an undersized army. You're going against a much larger French army that's better equipped and more motivated than your little band of raiders, I should say.
Brothers.
We band of brothers.
We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? As how does it read? How does it play? My favorite speech is "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I," which is an extremely long speech. And the reason why it's my favorite is because of the way Shakespeare plays with the iambic pentameter, and buggers around with it in enormous and making it extremely difficult to retain the iambic pentameter in some points, and then others it's quite easy. And the way the whole speech is orchestrated, the way it's structured, the way it's built, you start off with 3, 4, 5 lines which are perfect iambic pentameter. "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I! Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction and a dream of passion, could force his soul so into his own conceit that from its working all his visage one," etc. And it's perfect iambic pentameter. And then as he gets more and more agitated, the iambic pentameter starts to break apart. There are several lines where you just simply cannot maintain it. And he starts to introduce more and more midline endings. And now one of my rules is that you don't breathe in the middle of a line. So if you have a full stop in the middle of a line, you finish the sentence and start the new sentence coming straight away.
Right.
And so the midline endings, and the way those midline endings are structured, because they sometimes said just before the 4th beat, and then they get just before the 3rd beat, and then they get earlier and earlier, and the whole sense of breathlessness takes place, and then suddenly, bang, you have a short line for Hecuba. And a short line means you then have 4 beats as a pause. And then the iambic pentameter comes back. What's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive and the cue for prayer? And so the iambic pentameter comes back, and it accelerates by the use of the midline endings, and it accelerates until you get to another short line. Oh, vengeance. And then what comes in afterwards is perfect iambic pentameter, and then he gets himself all worked up again. And I mean, the way that speech is structured is so brilliant, because if you just follow or try to follow and fail the iambic pentameter, everything is done for you.
Wow. And that's fascinating too, because the way that it's structured, it kind of builds up to a crescendo, it kind of builds up to the point where agitation takes over, and then when the iambic pentameter returns, it's like you return to that calm, normal state.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, it's and then you take, for example, another example of the use of verse or iambic pentameter and not is Brutus's speech to the plebeians after having dispatched Caesar, and it's all rational and it's prose,
Right.
and then Mark Antony gets up and it's verse. Now, Mark Antony's speech is perfect iambic pentameter, not one midline ending in the whole, well, apart from one right at the beginning, not one midline ending. Every full stop is at the end of the line. And there are a shitload of lines which end with ambitious. And Mark Antony's speech is in verse. It is perfect iambic pentameter. It is pure rhetoric, and it is designed to work on the visceral passion. Whereas Brutus's speech in prose was intended to work on the rational. And the juxtaposition of those two speeches is extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Brutus is trying to justify his actions, whereas Antony is trying to say, well, that's not the full story you're getting here.
Yeah.
I mean, also with that speech, I kind of get the feeling that Antony's being a bit sarcastic as well.
Oh, hugely.
Because he keeps emphasizing, and Brutus is an honorable man. It's like he's standing there.
And again, and Brutus is an honorable man.
He's emphasizing the is, yeah.
The is falls on a strong beat, and Brutus is an honorable man. Which again, if you stress the is, the sarcasm drips off. Whereas if you just say, and Brutus is an honorable man, it doesn't have anywhere near the power. Right. And all those, and so are they all honorable men. It's the second all that falls on the strong beat.
Right. So he's just twisting the dagger and just saying, yeah, they really are a great bunch of guys.
Aren't they? Yeah.
They really are looking out for you by killing Caesar. Mm-hmm. And then obviously we know what happens after that. The crowd gets worked up, and then they go after the senators.
Yeah. But I mean, it's brilliant, and again, the structure and the use of and the way the words that you would not intellectually think fall on strong beats. I mean, that particular one, and Brutus is an honorable man. He has said so. And Mark Antony has said nothing except that stressing that is says everything.
And I was going to say too, because if you're in the audience and you're listening to that, instinctively you kind of start to second guess what Brutus is saying. But if you're just reading it, it's like, oh well, it's just another speech. But when you actually listen to it, you're like, yeah, maybe he isn't such a great guy after all,
Yeah, without actually saying anything.
So basically, we're overthinking it.
He says absolutely nothing against Brutus. It's
Right.
just the way it's phrased, and the way it is phrased has been done by Shakespeare by putting certain words that you would not intellectually consider to be important onto strong beats. In fact, if you look on my YouTube channel, you will see that there is a clip from Shakespeare Unbound of John Hemmings doing the Mark Antony speech, and you'll see what I mean.
Yep, I've got it. I've got it pulled up here. I'll definitely include that in the links. So I wanted to ask you. I want to ask you another question here. Do you think, or do you think, or have you seen this sort of approach being utilized in acting programs in the UK or anywhere in general?
No.
No. Okay.
Quite frankly, sometimes when I look at what people put up about how to play Shakespeare, etc., and sometimes I feel like the guy on the motorway, on the order route, on the highway, the divided highway, motorway we call it in English, who, and my feeling is I've followed the signs. Why is everybody else going the other way? It's, which is a bit of a, I mean, I've had, I've had arguments with people, but because some people can get very heated about what I'm proposing. But what I'm proposing seems to run contradictory to just about what everybody else is proposing. But I'm working simply, purely on the verse. I get very cross when I see people massacring the verse. There's another I think it's a TV film or film of Hamlet, and the "Oh, what a rogue, a peasant, slave am I" is absolutely massacred because he turns it into well, I mean, I don't know how sensitive to language you're, but I mean, it's a masturbation. I mean, it's just, as we would say in English, it's a wank. I mean, it might have felt very good doing it, but oh God.
You're not appreciating the material. You're just going through the motions, basically.
You're not. You're allowing yourself to revel, no, to wallow in the emotions without sharing it with the audience.
That's an interesting point.
I mean, there are two. I mean, I'm not going back to the 1950s and 1960s voice beautiful John Gielgud, an actor whom I absolutely respect and admire, but I mean, there's an apocryphal story about him when he was doing one Shakespeare, and of course he had that magnificent voice, which and so he could get carried away sometimes too, and he sort of, and there's a story when he was delivering one speech, and he came off stage and went, "Oh my God, pure opera." He's criticizing himself. I mean,
right.
for getting so carried away. But no, I mean, the fascinating thing I found, more and more I look at this, is the more you respect the verse and the more you actually make the verse work for you, the more natural and spontaneous it sounds. Which might seem contradictory to some people given their training, but if you really do respect the verse and really do hit those apparently unimportant words which have fallen on strong beats, it starts to sound much more conversational.
Yeah, because because my and I'm sure this is a general this is like a general way of viewing Shakespeare. It's always been seen as highfalutin and sort of artificial. You know, when people want to go to a Renaissance festival, for instance, everybody puts on the Shakespeare talk, but they kind of forget that Shakespeare is supposed to, it's supposed to be natural, it's supposed to flow, it's supposed to be conversational. So I totally agree with you. You know, Shakespeare. You know, we need to stop having Shakespeare be this artificial kind of something that you put on to sound impressive, and just bring it down to the everyday level. Kind of like with what you were doing back in the day when you were trying to take Shakespeare out to the, to the working class areas and making it accessible to everybody.